All right, welcome to our Microsoft Excel Lesson 4. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at using financial functions, data tables, and amortization schedules to create a mortgage payment calculator. So some of the things that we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking at some of the advanced functions such as PMT, PV, FV, which are just a payment calculator, a financial function. PV is a present value, FV is a future value. We're going to be creating an amortization table. We're also going to be creating a data table, and then we are going to do a lot of different formatting. And so let's jump right on in and get started. And so in this project, we are going to have one area of our workbook that's going to be designated for the payment calculator, and that's going to be up here in the upper left. Down here below, we're going to have a varying interest rate schedule, and then over on the right, we're going to have our amortization schedule. And so we're going to go ahead and jump right on in to start to create this calculator. And we're going to be leaving some weird blank cells because we're going to use cells to create borders for this specific project. So while it may look a little bit weird at first, when we do the formatting and stuff as we get closer to the end of the project, it'll all start to make sense. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to apply the droplet theme. So in our page layout, we're going to come over to our themes, and then we're going to apply the droplet. And again, they're going to be alphabetical, droplet, right over there. And then in cell C3, so again, you can see we're leaving rows 1 and 2 blank and columns A and B blank. So in cell C3, we're going to go ahead and type the text mortgage payment calculator. Mortgage payment calculator. Uh-oh. Let me try that one more time. There we go. All right. And then we're going to merge and center the range C3 through F3. So in our Home tab, we're going to merge and center. And then we're going to apply the title style. So in our cell styles, we're going to apply the title style. And then we're going to middle align that text vertically in the cell. So we're going to click right up here to middle align it. All right, and then in C4, we're going to go ahead and type the text date. And then in D4, we're going to type the now function. So equals now, open, close parentheses, and it's going to put in our date. And then we're going to right click and format cells. And we're going to give this the date formatting of the 14-mar with the 4-digit, the very bottom one. All right. And then we're going to come down to cell C5 and type item. C6 is price. C7, down PYMT period. So down PYMT period for down payment. And then C8, loan amount. And then in cell E4, we're going to type the text rate, and then going down and maintaining our column E, term, and then monthly payment. This time we're going to type the word out, monthly payment. total interest, and finally, total cost. All right. All right, so now we're going to adjust the column widths and row heights. So we're going to select columns A and B together, and then we're going to change the width to 0.85. So you can come to this two-way pointing arrow, click and hold, pull it in to 0.85, or you can go to your Home tab, Cell Group, Format, Column Width, and type 0.85, and then OK. We're also going to change the column C boundary to 12. So C is going to be 12. And again, you can do the same thing. Or you can just grab the handle, either way, the format cell width, or grab the little sizing handle. And then we're going to select D through F. And this is going to be 16. And again, we can just pull it out towards 16, or format column width 16. All right, and then we're going to adjust rows 1 and 2. So select 1 and 2 together. And we're going to change this to 8.25 high. And again, home, format, row height, 8.25. OK. And then I'm going to select an empty cell near that area. All right. So now we're going to give this sheet tab a name. So right now we've got sheet 1. I'm just going to double click on it to select that name, and we're going to call it the mortgage payment calculator. And then enter. And then we're going to do a file save as to save this project. Again, I'm going to save it in my Excel folder on my desktop, and we're going to call it mortgage calculator. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to format some cells prior to entering the value. So most of the times we enter the values and then we come back and format them. Right now we're going to format them prior to entering values. So we've got our item, price, down payment, and loan amount. These are all money values. So we're going to select D5 through D8. Actually, item is not. Item is a text. Excuse me, D6 through D8 we're going to select. And then we're also going to select the range F6 through F8. So I'm going to hold my control and then F6 through F8 to select those non-adjacent ranges. And then we're going to apply the currency format with the negative values in red and parentheses. So with those selected, we're going to come over here to our number launcher, currency, decimal places 2, $ symbol, and the negative red parentheses values. All right. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to enter our loan data. And so for this particular loan, and again, we can just use this as default information, and then we can create it with different information later if we need to. But we're going to just do a loan for a house at the moment. So we're going to type in house for the item. And then I'm going to write a line. So with that selected, I'm going to click that OK, the little check mark, and then align to the right. And then I'm going to navigate to cell D6, and then the value of the home, or the price, is $519,000, so 519000. And then I'm just going to enter or down arrow, and you can see it automatically formats that with the value. $115,000 even is our down payment. And then the loan amount, we're going to use a calculation for that. So we're going to leave that blank for now. Now we're going to come up to cell F4 for that rate information, 3.875%, and we're going to type it just like that. Now you'll notice that mine changed it back to 2 decimals. I'm just going to select that cell and then just come back up to my number group and say increase decimal because I want it to be a 3 decimal number. And then our term is 15 years. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a little quick save on that to save our progress again. And so now what we're going to do is when we're creating these formulas and functions in a little bit, we're going to be using cell names as opposed to cell addresses. So again, right now, this is cell D4, right? Because it's D4 is the address. If we click over here, we're in cell F8, and again, F8 is the address, but it's also the name. Right up here is their name box. We're going to give these cells names based on the labels adjacent to them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the range C6 through D8. All right, and then with my formula tab selected, I'm going to come over here to this defined name area and I'm going to say create from selection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create names for the cells in the right column based on the names or the labels in the left column. And so it says create names from values in the, I'm going to make sure I say left column and then OK. All right, and so you'll notice that now before we had, this was D6, D7, D8. Now if we click in it, this is our price. This is our down payment. This is our loan amount. And then we're going to do the same thing for E4 through F8. Create from selection, left column, OK. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to enter our loan amount formula using names of cells instead of using our cell address. So in cell D8, with that one active, I'm going to type equals P. And then you'll notice, because we want to make sure our loan amount is going to be equal to our price minus our down payment. That's how much, that's what we're going to take out. And so you can see we've got all these little fx's right here, which are functions. But if I type R next, now you'll see we have price as a function, but we also have price that looks like a little table. And that means we have a field called price in this sheet. I'm going to click on that twice, double click. And then once I've got that, I'm going to type minus DO, and then you'll see we've got functions, and then we also have a field in our table, or in our worksheet. Double click down payment. Now you see our loan amount is going to be equals to our price minus our down payment. I'm going to go ahead and click on that little green check box up there, which should give us the value of $404,000. All right, so now we're going to calculate our payment for our annual, or our monthly payment for our mortgage. And so the payment is going to be based on the rate of our loan, how many terms we have, and how much money we're taking out. And so in cell F6, our monthly payment cell. We're going to go ahead and we're going to type the function minus PMT. And we're doing a minus PMT because if we did PMT, it's going to return how much our payment would be as a positive number. However, we want our monthly payment to be a negative number because we're actually paying that much out. So we need to make sure that we enter it with a negative, the opposite operator to start. So equal or minus PMT, open parentheses, and then rate. So RA, and if you want to just double click on those, you can. So rate divided by 12. And we're doing rate divided by 12 is because our rate, 3.875, is going to be our annual interest. We want to know how much interest we're going to pay per month. And to do that, we're going to divide that annual rate by 12. So PM minus PMT, or negative PMT, open parentheses, rate divided by 12. And so that's what our rate, our periodic rate is going to be, comma. Now this is our number of payments. So the next one is going to be 12 times, so asterisk, term, which is 15. So our term is 15 years, but in order to figure out how many payments, we have to multiply our monthly payments. So 12 times 15 will tell us how many total payments we'll pay. And then our present value, comma, and then our present value is equal to our loan amount. So LOA, there's our loan amount. Double click on that. And then you can close the parentheses, or you can just hit enter, and that's going to tell you how much you're going to pay as a monthly payment. So in this case, our monthly payment is going to be $2,963.10. All right. And then now in cell F7, we're going to calculate our total interest. And so for our total interest, we're going to have to figure out how much money we'll make in payments and subtract the price from that. Or subtract the loan amount from that value. And again, so for our total interest, it's going to be equals 12 times term times monthly payment. Again, I'm just double clicking on those. And then minus LO, loan amount. And again, so 12 payments times 15 years times the $3,000 a month will tell us how much money we're going to make in our total payments, and we're going to subtract the loan amount from that value, and that's going to tell us how much we've made in our how much interest we're paying. So enter. $129,357 and some change is how much interest we'll be paying over that 15-year period. So just under $10,000 a year is how much we're going to be paying in interest to take out $400,000 in a loan. And then our total cost is going to be the price of the house plus our total interest. So equals PR, price, plus TO, total interest, enter, and we should get 648,000 plus. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that progress. And now let's take a look at how this will work if we have different data. So instead of the item for a house, let's do a condo. And the price of our condo is going to be $200,000 even. And then we're going to have a down payment of $50,000. And so our loan amount will be $150,000. Now, if we had a 3.875% rate for 15 years, we'd be paying $1,000, a little over $1,000 a month. But instead, let's do a 4.125% over 10 years. And then that will show us that this interest, or this loan, is going to cost us $33,000 over 10 years, or $33,300 a year, basically, as opposed to the almost $10,000 we were paying with that house loan. So let's go ahead and let's change it back to house. Change our price to, was it $519? And our down payment was going to be $115, I believe is what it was. And then 15-year loan at 3.875%. All right, so I'm going to go back and save our progress. So now we're going to enter a data table to analyze the data in our worksheet. And so what the data table is going to do, it's going to help us evaluate different percentages of loans. So if we can get a different rate, how will that affect our monthly payment? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come down to cell C9, immediately below that, and I'm going to type varying interest rate schedule. So varying interest rate schedule. And then I'm going to click in cell C3, and then in my Home tab, click the Format Painter in my clipboard, and then I'm just going to click, bloop, right on that cell C9, and it's automatically going to merge and center, apply the title style, and center align it vertically as well as horizontally. And then in cell C10, I'm going to type rate. In D10, monthly payment. In E10, total interest. And F10, total cost. And then I'm going to come down to cell C11, and I'm going to create a percentage series using my fill handle. And so at first I need to do is to develop what my series is. So in cell C11, I'm going to type 3.000%, and then enter. And then in cell C12, I'm going to type 3.125%, and then enter. And so it's going to show up 3.13 at the moment, but that's fine. We'll adjust that in a minute. But so I need to develop my pattern, so I'm going to go up in increments of 1/8%. So 0.125 is the equivalent of 1/8. So I'm going to select those two cells, C11 and C12. When I have those two selected, I'm going to get that little fill handle down at the bottom. I'm going to click and hold with my left mouse button and drag it down to row 22. When I get it down to row 22, I'm going to release. And actually what I wanted to do is, now I've got that range, but I actually wanted to start this in cell C12. So I'm going to click with this range still selected. I'm going to hover over the border to get that four-way pointing arrow. I'm going to click and hold and then pull it down 1, and then release. All right. So now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to enter the formulas for our data table. So in cell C11 in the rate, we're going to leave that blank for the moment because these are our rates right down here. Our monthly payment, so it's D11, we're going to type equals F6. So equals F6. But make sure you do equals F6 and not plus F6. So equals F6. And, oh my goodness. Come on. There we go. All right, and that's going to be equal to our monthly payment. And our total interest is equal F7, so equals F7, enter, and our total cost is equal F8. All right, so we've got our formulas in here, and again, the formulas are basing all of the numbers on these values. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to define a range as our data table. And so all of this stuff right down here is going to be our data table. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select the range C11 through F23. And with that range selected, we're going to go to our data tab. And then over here in our forecast group, we're going to click this what if analysis button. And then when we do that, we'll get a scenario manager, a goal seek, and then a data table. I'm going to click data table. It's going to ask us what we want for our row input cell. Or it's going to ask us what we want for our column input cell. We're going to use the column input. So with our insertion point in that column input cell, we're going to click in cell F4. Now don't type F4. We're going to click cell F4 because when we do that, it's going to give us the absolute reference. So $F, $4. And then we're going to say OK. And then it's going to populate this table for us. Now right now this table is a little bit meaningless because it's got all these different values that we can't really understand that well. So we're going to go ahead and change this. So we're going to select that range D12 through F23. And then we're going to apply the currency style. So in our home tab, number group, we're going to go back to the currency style, 2 decimals, the negative numbers in red with the parentheses. Only this time, we're not going to use the $, we're just going to click none. And then OK. And then this is going to show us our data table. So now, again, this is showing us if we had a different rate, how it would affect us. So for example, if we had to take out a 4% loan over 15 years, the 4% loan is going to cost us $2,988 a month instead of $2,963. So it's going to be, what, about $25 more per month. And then over the life of the loan, it's going to cost us about $4,000 more. Now, if we could get a 3% interest rate, so a little bit lower, it's going to cost us just under $2,800 a month. So we're going to save about $150 a month. And then over the life of the loan, it'll actually save us about $30,000. So this is showing us what would happen if we got a different loan amount. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a little quick save to save our progress. And now that we've got that data table entered, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to adjust some more column widths. And then we're going to enter some titles for our amortization schedule, which is going to go over here. So we're going to adjust column G. So I'm just going to select column G, and we're going to change that to 0.85. So I'm just going to use format column width, type 0.85, enter. Column H is going to be 6. So again, you can either adjust it this way or use your format cells up here. I through L, I, J, K, and L are going to be 16 wide. All right. And then now let's go ahead and enter our information. So in cell H3, just coming right up there, and I'm going to type amortization schedule. Amortization schedule. All right, and then again, just a little quick note on the amortization schedule. What the amortization schedule is actually going to do, it's going to tell us where we are in our repayment plan. So after, and then again, once we take a look at this, it'll be a little bit easier to understand. But we're going to figure out each year where we're going to start the year with how much money we owe, and then based on how much money we've paid throughout that year, how much money we've got left to pay. And so we'll see after each year how much we've paid on principal, how much we've paid on interest, what our total amount paid is, and then we can figure out how much we have to pay as we go through this. So I'm going to go ahead and select D or C3, take that format painter, and then click on the amortization schedule. Oopsie, on cell, let's undo that. Click on H3 and not I3. H3. All right, and then I'm just going to click in that cell, so that H3, and drag over to include L3. And then I'm going to click merge and center once, and then merge and center another time. So it's going to unmerge and then remerge with the new range, because this merged 4 columns and this one we have 5. So we wanted to make sure we included that. All right, now in cell H4, we're going to enter the information for our amortization schedule. So we're going to type year in cell H4, and then these are our column headings. Beginning balance is I4. J will be ending balance. K will be paid on principal. And L is going to be interest paid. And paid on principal, it's not a principal like we have many principles that we live by. It's principal PAL. Again, so year, beginning balance, ending balance, paid on principal, and then our interest paid. All right, we're going to select that range, H4 through L4, and we are going to center align in our alignment. All right, now we're going to come down to H5, and we're going to do the years. So we've got a 15-year loan, so we're going to do 1, and then in cell H6, 2. We're going to select those 2 together, H5 and H6, grab the fill handle to create our series all the way down to 15 years, so that's going to be in row 19. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to create the formulas for our amortization schedule. So the beginning balance is going to be the beginning balance at the end of the previous year. But in this case, our beginning balance is going to be a little bit different. So in cell I5, our beginning balance is going to be equal to cell D8, which is what our loan is. So enter. And then in cell J5, the ending balance is going to be the amount at the end of the year after we've made all of our payments. But we don't want this value to be a negative number, because if it's a negative number, it's going to start to mess us up. And so we want it to say, okay, once we get down to a 0 value, then we want to stop counting down. So we're going to have to create an if argument. So a logical argument. So in this case, and again, if you have to pause and rewind this to look at it again, it's totally fine. This is a very complicated formula. And so in cell J5, our ending balance is going to be equals if. So we're going to start with our if argument. So equals if. And then open parentheses. Now this is going to, so the if argument is if H5, so our years, if H5 is less than or equal to, and then we're going to click in H5 or F5 right over here. So if this is less than this, our term, but we're going to click, I'm not going to click in that cell. I'm going to go ahead, instead, I'm going to type F5 and then hit my function 4 key, because we want to make this an absolute reference. Again, if we fill this formula down, it's going to create our relative reference, and it's going to say if this cell is less than 15, and then if it's less than 2,900, and then if it's less than 129,000. So it's going to have to read if H5 is less than or equal to $F $5. So the absolute reference, comma. So the value, if true, is going to be PV, which is our present value, open parentheses, $F $4. And again, that's going to be our interest rate. So our interest rate divided by 12, comma, 12 times, and then again, open parentheses, $F $5. So our number of payments, so F5 minus H5. And then close the parentheses, comma, negative $F $6. And then close the parentheses to that one, comma, 0, close the parentheses again. All right. And again, so when we create this amortization schedule, creating it allows us to see what our cost of the mortgage, as well as the balance that we owe for any year in that term, right? But that information, if it gets down below the number of years, it's going to start to be a a negative number, which is going to start to mess up our formula. And so equals if, open parentheses, H5 less than equal to $F $5, the absolute reference to our term, comma, PV, open parentheses, $F $4, so our rate divided by 12, comma, 12 times $F $5, so our term, minus H5, which is our year, minus the monthly payment, $F $6. And so that's if that H5 is greater than that, this is our value. If it's not, comma 0, then it's going to be a 0 instead of a negative number. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click the check mark, and you should get 38, 37, 40. All right, then our paid on principal in cell K5. This is going to be a very easy one. Equals I5 minus J5. Equals I5 minus J5. Enter. And then our interest paid, again, this is going to be another if statement, because again, we don't want our interest to go into a negative number, because we're not going to, because once we get to 0, that's where it stops. So equals if, open parentheses, I5 greater than 0, come on, if I5 is greater than 0, comma, 12 times $F $6, which is our monthly payment, minus K5, which is our paid on principal, comma 0, and then close the parentheses. All right. So now we've got that set up. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to fill our amortization schedule using these values. So we're going to select J5 through L5. And then we're going to fill that range down through column 9, or through year 15, but it's going to be actually column 19. Now we've got a bunch of wonky numbers here, which is totally fine, because it's giving us these wonky numbers because we have to make sure that in cell I6, our beginning balance is going to be our ending balance from the previous year. All right, so in cell I6, we're going to say equals J5. And then enter. And then we're going to fill I6 down through I19. All right, and then you'll see when we get to the end, at the end, our ending balance is going to get down to 0, and then it's going to show us what that how much interest we've paid on that 1 year, and then based on how much principal we've paid on that year. All right, and so let's go ahead and I'm going to select that range I6 through L19, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to format those values as currency with 0 decimals. So again, number, currency, or sorry, 2 decimals without the $sign, and then our negative numbers will be in red. Oopsie. and then that one should be this. In this, the first row, I5 through L5 is going to be our currency formatting with the negative number in red and $sign. All right, I'm going to do a little quick save to save that. And again, so this is showing us that the first year we're going to start with a $400,000 balance that we owe. By the time we're done with that, we've paid $15,000 in interest for the first year, so our ending balance is going to be $383,000, and so that's going to be our starting balance for year 2. And then you'll notice, so each year we pay a little bit more on principal and a little bit less on interest. So year 1 we pay $15,000 in interest. By year 15 we only pay $700 in interest. And then we end up paying almost all of the money on principal. So in the last couple years of our loan, most of the money that we're going to pay is principal because we've paid off all of our interest up front. Again, that's the idea behind taking out a loan. You pay your interest first, and then you start to pay down the principal. All right, so let's go down to cell J20. In cell J20, we're going to create our little formulas for our amortization schedule. So I'm going to type subtotal as the row heading for this. And then K20 through L20. So K20 through L20, I'm going to click auto sum. I'm just going to create the auto sum for those. In cell J21, down PYMT period, and then in cell L21 equals D7. And then in cell J22, total cost is our row title. And then in cell L22, it's going to be equals K20 plus L20 plus L21, enter. All right, and then we'll notice that here our subtotal should be equal to what our loan amount is. The interest paid is going to be our total interest, and then our total cost is going to be the same. So we've got all of those numbers are the same in both places, so we know that those values are good. All right, so now let's go ahead and format this worksheet. So we're going to add our custom borders. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select the range C4 through F8. So let me come back over to the beginning. Again, so C4 through F8. All right. So with that range, I'm going to go ahead and right click and then format cells. And then here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to my border tab. And then with my border tab selected, I'm going to choose the color instead of automatic. I'm going to choose green accent 2. It's going to be that kind of tealy looking color. And then we're going to choose the medium style border. So we've got our thin border, a medium border, and our dark border. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that medium border right there. And then I'm going to click Outline. And then OK. And then if I click away, you'll see it's got that border right around there. All right, so I'm going to select that range again. And this time, I'm going to go to my right-click, Format Cells. And then this time I'm going to click the thin border, and I'm going to click on the vertical line in between. And then OK. And then now you'll notice that I've got my my darker border around the perimeter, and then each column is separated by the thinner line. All right, so let's continue. So we're going to select the next range we're going to select is C10 through F22, or 23, C10 through F23. Again, I'm going to right-click, Format Cells. With that range selected, I'm going to click on that medium border, the green accent 2 outline. I'm going to click on the light border, and then I'm going to click the vertical line divider. I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to select C10 through F10. And then we're also going to apply a light border in that range. So I'm just going to come out to my borders, and then more borders. I'm going to choose a light bottom border. OK. And then it gives me the light bottom border to separate those titles from those other things. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to select our range H4 through L22. And I'm going to do the same thing. So right click, Format Cells. We're going to do the medium green accent 2 outline. We're also going to do the thin vertical divider, so column divider, OK. And then we're going to select H4 through L4. We're going to give that the Format Cells. That's going to get the light bottom border. OK. And then down here, we're going to select H19 through L19, and that's also going to get the light bottom border. So Format Cells, the light bottom border, OK, and there we have that one. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to change row 23. I've decided, you know what, I don't want this row 23, so I'm going to delete it. Oopsie, it won't allow me to delete it. That's totally fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the height of row 24 to 8.25. Oopsie, to 8.25. And I'm going to change column M to 0.85. So column M is going to be 0.85. And then I'm going to select the range B2 through M23, or sorry, through M24. So B2 through M24. And then I'm going to go to my borders again. So right click, Format Cells, in my border tab. I'm going to add a blue-gray text 2. So the color is going to be blue-gray text 2. And I'm going to do an outline border. So we're going to do the heavy style, so the bold one, outline, OK. And then with that range still selected, I'm going to do Format Cells, Fill, and then we're going to give it this background fill, the white background 1 color, OK. And then that's going to give us a little bit more definition to that amortization schedule. All right, and then the last thing we're going to do for this is we're going to conditionally format our rate. So we want to know what interest rate we're getting, so how it's going to look over here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to conditionally format that. So we're going to select the range C12 through F23, and then in our Home tab, Style Group, Conditional Formatting, we're going to choose Highlight Cell Rules, and we're going to say equals to, click on that one, and then where it says equal to, we're going to type in that cell, right now it says 3.69 for me, equals $F, $4, and we're going to keep that light red fill, OK. Oop. And then I'm going to also, with that range still selected, I'm actually going to do the increase decimal, because I want to make sure that it's giving me those 3 decimal places here as well. All right, and so now you can see that I've got that. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And then now if our rate changes, so if we're going to do a 4.125% instead, now you can see that 4.125 is selected. All of these other values are changed as well. I'm just going to undo that to get it back. And then save our progress, and that project is complete.